Good morning. Welcome to another One Mind meditation. I have a pretty long piece that I want to share with you today, so I'm going to jump right in. Our teacher for this week is Gary Zukav, but I'm only using one quote of his today. The other quotes are all from other teachers, so let's get right in there. Antoinette, good morning. Hello. Great seeing you. Somebody, good morning. Hello, hello. Awesome having you all here. Right, so the thought from Gary Zukav this morning is, the amount of stress in your life is determined by how much energy you expend resisting your life. And we're going to really unpack this thought. So I'll read through it again. The amount of stress in your life is determined by how much energy you expend resisting your life. The stress in your life is caused by how much you resist life. Mari, good morning. Awesome seeing you. Hello. Danae, good morning. Great having you all here. Anthony, a very good morning, dude. So let's unpack that. In spiritual teachings, resistance is a regular topic. And to understand the effects of what resistance creates in our bodies, it may be helpful to look at what resistance means in physics. In an electrical system, for instance, resistance is created by a component, usually called a resistor, that is designed to resist the flow of electricity. Some simple examples of resistors are the tungsten filament in an incandescent light bulb, the old light bulbs which have the little piece of wire that glows hot when you switch it on, and the nichrome spiral of an electric stove top. We all know what that looks like. When you switch the stove on, that spiral becomes red hot. Beatrix, good morning. Annalie, good morning. Anami, good morning. Awesome seeing you, beautiful humans. And just in case Dylan is there with Annalie, good morning, Dylan, as well. Charlene, hello. A very good morning to you. So just to recap that, in an electrical system, a resistor is designed to resist the flow of electricity. And in its resistance to the flow of electricity, it starts heating up and glowing red hot or white hot eventually. These metals are not good conductors of electricity. In fact, they resist the flow of electricity so much that they heat up and start to glow enough to either light up a room or even bring a pot of water to boiling point. Resistance, by its very nature, causes friction and stress within a system. This can be useful if it's applied to providing light or cooking dinner, but very unhelpful if resistance is the default state of our nervous system. Similar to resistance in an electrical system, a nervous system that is in resistance also restricts the flow of information. In an electrical system, if the wiring heats up, the heat causes the plastic insulation to become brittle and break, creating short circuits and misfiring. And so too, in a nervous system in constant resistance, it causes the myelin sheath around the neurons to wear thin and break, creating misfiring and miscommunication within the system. Are you perhaps frying your wiring? Are you in constant resistance to something or various things in your life? This might not be easy to answer. It might not be obvious at all. So to try and form a clearer understanding of the concept of resistance, we'll look at it through the eyes of multiple other teachers. The first thought comes from Byron Katie. She says, I am a lover of what is. I am a lover of what is, not because I'm a spiritual person, but because it hurts when I argue with reality. We can know that reality is good just as it is because when we argue with it, we experience tension and frustration. We don't feel natural or balanced. When we stop opposing reality, action becomes simple, fluid, kind, and fearless. Eckhart Tolle says, to offer no resistance to life is to be in a state of grace, ease, and lightness. This state is then no longer dependent upon things being in a certain way, good or bad. It seems almost paradoxical, yet when your inner dependency on form is gone, the general conditions of your life, the outer forms, tend to improve greatly. Eckhart says, to offer no resistance to life is to be in a state of grace. The next thought from Eckhart says, the greater part of human pain is unnecessary. It is self-created as long as the unobserved mind runs your life. The pain that you create now is always some form of non-acceptance, some form of unconscious resistance to what is. So just like Gary Zukav says, all of our stress comes from our resistance to life. Eckhart says all of our pain comes from our unconscious resistance to what is. Adyashanti says, whatever you resist, you become. If you resist anger, you are always angry. If you resist sadness, you are always sad. If you resist suffering, you are always suffering. If you resist confusion, you are always confused. We think that we resist certain states because they are there, but actually they are there because we resist them. And Gautama Buddha says, change is never painful. It is our resistance to change that is painful. So this whole conversation eventually gets to a point of asking, so instead of resistance, what can we reach for? And the answer, the obvious answer, is surrender. But in the conversation about surrender, letting go of resistance and surrendering into something softer, the question about taking action is often not addressed clearly enough. And the question might sound something like this: does surrender mean that I never take action? Surrender becomes available to us once we realize that our latest set of actions have mostly been unhelpful. That in our resistance to reality, we've been doing nothing but splashing up a storm in our pond. And that the only route back to clarity is to take a step back and for the moment do nothing but wait for the water to settle. Surrender doesn't mean the absence of action, but it does mean the absence of splashing. And being committed to only act when it's clear where to place the next step. Last thought comes from Eckhart. He says, accept the present moment as if you had chosen it. Let go of resistance so much that you can be in any present moment with a kind of acceptance, the same kind of acceptance as if you had chosen this moment to be exactly this way. He follows that with accept, then act. We're not asking for an absence of action. But when action follows acceptance, then there's no splashing. So our meditation today is called Surrender. And if you're ready, let's slip into that pond together. You can close your eyes. And we'll start with the first few big breaths. Let's take a deep breath in and out. A deep breath in and out. A deep inhale and let it go. Deep breath in and out. One more big breath in. And let it all flow away. You can continue the same breathing pattern on your own time. Every slow inhale through your nose gets drawn all the way deep down into your belly. And as you fill up your belly with air, also raise yourself up. As you breathe in, stretch out your spine, lift the top of your head toward the ceiling, and once you've reached your full height, let all of it go. With every exhale, soften. With every breath out, soften your spine, slump down your shoulders, and drop your head. While you continue your full body breathing, and with every exhale, feel your body soften. Feel your body surrender. While you continue this full body breathing, we'll have a conversation about the topic of not surrender, resistance. I want to touch just again on the more scientific, physics-based idea of resistance in a system. And mention again that in an electrical system, and our nervous system has so many similarities to a system of electrical wiring. In an electrical system, resistance is something that is created by a resistor that stops or tries to stop the flow of electricity, the flow of current. And any time there is a resistance to the flow of current, the system or something in the system heats up. Have you ever looked at wiring that has become hot? And have you seen what happens to the plastic insulation layer around the wiring when that wiring has become too hot? And it's clear to see how the insulation breaks in places, exposing the raw copper. In our nervous system, a similar thing happens when we build up too much resistance to life. And often we just need a little bit of a thought of what we're trying to control, controlling life, controlling people's reactions, controlling what people think of us, to build up enough resistance to life in our nervous system that our nerves are always running hot. And similar to electrical wiring, our nerves also have an insulating sheath around them. In the case of our nerves, this is called myelin, the myelin sheath. This can be measured, and in people who have experienced too much stress, too much tension, too much PTSD, it's clear that this insulating sheath wears thin. The constant heat in the system is breaking down the insulating layer. And the more it wears thin and starts breaking in places, the more there is miscommunication, misfiring in the system. Are you resisting life? Or are there some parts of life that you are in resistance to? Your nervous system will carry this burden. It'll bear the brunt of that resistance. Let's soften again by taking the last few big breaths of this phase together, helping our bodies find surrender. Take a deep breath in. As you release, drop your head all the way forward and roll out your neck muscles forward and to the left, and forward and to the right. Take a deep breath in. As you release, roll your shoulders forward in big, slow circles. Take a deep breath in. As you release, roll your shoulders backwards in big, slow circles. Take a deep breath in. As you release, focus on your spine. Lean your upper body over to the left. And lean your upper body over to the right. Feel yourself leaning into your back muscles. Gently, gently stretching your back muscles. One more big breath in. And as you release, you can stretch or move or adjust any part of your body that still needs a bit of help settling down. Having softened our bodies into a state of presence, or at least becoming as present as we possibly can right now, we can now turn our attention inwards and dive deep inside for the next part of our journey. If you don't have the time to sit for the whole meditation with us, then this is always a good place to stop. But if you are here for the whole journey, then with every next inhale, we'll hold our breath for a few short moments. followed by a really long, really slow exhale. Let's take a deep breath in and hold. As you release, make it the longest, slowest exhale that you can. Take a deep breath in and hold. As you release, feel into your body. Feel how softness slips in and settles in every part of your body. Take a deep breath in and hold. As you release, follow the downwards flow through your body. Feel your shoulders slowly falling. Feel your body slowly softening, and feel how you are slowly slipping deeper into you. One more big breath in and hold. And as you release, feel yourself melting. Feel your whole body dissolving. Feel how you are slipping into a deeper level of surrender with every slow exhale. You can continue the same breathing pattern on your own time. Every slow inhale through your nose is an invitation. It invites you to turn inwards and follow this journey. As you breathe in, feel the air flow in through your nostrils. Feel the air touch the back of your throat. Stay with your breath as it flows in through your lungs. And as you fill up the balloon inside your belly, feel yourself slip all the way in. Hold your breath, but hold it only for as long as it feels easy, followed by a really long, really slow exhale. With your next big breath, as you dive deep into you, the topic is resistance. What has been your relationship with resistance? Take your next big breath. ask that question again in a moment. But before we get there, in this specific meditation, surrender, I love using the analogy of the pond. So I want you to create that image, the visualization that you are standing in a pond that's deep enough for the surface to reach you all the way to your hips. In this example, right now, the pond is clear. As you are standing in the water, you can look down, see your legs, see your feet, see the bottom of the pond. The question was, what has been your relationship with resistance? Is it an easy enough question for you to answer? What have you been in resistance to? Take your next big breath. And it can sometimes be a difficult question to answer because it's not always obvious what we're in resistance to. But perhaps this will help. It can start very innocently. It always does, really. And all we need to create the start of resistance in our system is the tiny little thought that goes, it shouldn't be like this. If this could be in response to anything happening, it shouldn't be like this. Very often, it has something to do with another human being, someone doing something. And we have that little thought that goes, they shouldn't be doing that. Or someone saying something, and we have a little reaction that goes, they shouldn't be saying that. Right there is the tiny spark that can start the resistance that burns down the house. What has been your relationship with that little thought? It shouldn't be like that. They shouldn't be saying that. They shouldn't be doing that. Take your next big breath. One of the reasons why the questions about resistance can be hard to answer is because often we are right. They shouldn't be doing that. Often we are right. They shouldn't be saying that. Yet, when our body, our nervous system reacts to that, whether we are right or wrong, we'll be the ones suffering. The question then is, what happens after we have that thought? What do we do after we have that thought, that resistance to what's happening? And this often to me looks like the splashing in our pond. When the tiniest part of us thinks that we can control the outcome. Whatever we do in our confusion of control is simply a splashing in our pond. What happens in your pond when you have resistance to things in life happening? What does your splashing look like? Sometimes the splashing is observable from the outside. Sometimes you can see someone reacting in resistance. But very often it's not visible from the outside. It's just this build-up of resistance in our nervous system that we can feel on the inside. But nonetheless, whether we're splashing visibly or just on the inside, things become very murky in our resistance. We lose sight of the bottom of the pond. And the more confusing things become, the more instinctively we splash. What does your pond look like in resistance? Bring to mind some of your own examples of how your life feels, how your inner world feels when you are resisting what's happening. Take your next big breath. I want to invite you to step out of the pond for a moment. Sit on the side of this stormy pond. And for right now, just take a few big breaths again. Just observe this pond. See what happens if we stop splashing and just get out. Take your next big breath. Can you see the water slowly return to its natural state? The surface of the pond becomes still. The water itself becomes clear. Almost always in a conversation about resistance and surrender, the question then becomes, But do I never take action then? And the answer is, no, we're not supposed to never take action. But splashing is always unhelpful. And the splashing comes from our misguided idea that we can control anything. That we can control how anything in the world shows up. The moment we think that we can control something, our action becomes splashing. What happens if you get back into the pond with baby steps? A tiny step at a time. The water stays relatively clear. When we take just the next small step, just where I can see where to place my foot. Are you ready to completely let go of the idea that you can control anything? Because the next time you do try and control the outcome of anything in this world, you'll pay attention to how that only creates a splashing in your pond. We'll take the last few big breaths of this phase together, slipping out of the breath holding space and into the next. Let's take a deep breath in and hold. As you release, make it a long, slow exhale. Take a deep breath in and hold. As you release, feel how softness slips in and settles in every part of your body. One more big breath in and hold. And as you release, feel yourself slip all the way through. There is no more attention on your breathing. You can sit all the way back or even lie all the way back down and feel yourself just floating. I'll read to you one more time a few of these beautiful thoughts from multiple different teachers this morning. Starting with our teacher for the week, Gary Zukav. He says, the amount of stress in your life is determined by how much energy you expend resisting your life. So then on the topic of resistance, how do various other teachers speak about resistance? Byron Katie says, I am a lover of what is. Not because I'm a spiritual person, but because it hurts when I argue with reality. We can know that reality is good just as it is, because when we argue with it, we experience tension and frustration. We don't feel natural or balanced. When we stop opposing reality, action becomes simple, fluid, kind, and fearless. So I want to bring your attention to that thought. Byron Katie is also not saying, in surrender, we should take no action. But in surrender, action becomes simple, fluid, kind, and fearless, because our actions are not trying to control anyone or anything. Eckhart says, to offer no resistance to life is to be in a state of grace, ease, and lightness. Because this state is no longer dependent upon things being in a certain way for us to be okay. Eckhart says, the greater part of human pain is unnecessary. It is self-created as long as the unobserved mind runs your life. The pain that you create now is always some form of non-acceptance, some form of unconscious resistance to life as it is. Adyashanti says, whatever you resist, you become. If you resist anger, you are always angry. If you resist sadness, you are always sad. If you resist suffering, you are always suffering. If you resist confusion, you are always confused. We think that we resist certain states because they are there, but actually, they are there because we resist them. And Gautama Buddha says, change is never painful. It is only our resistance to change that causes pain. One last thought from Eckhart. Accept the present moment as if you had chosen it. Whatever present moment you find yourself in, accept it as if this was your choice. Anything else will bring you in resistance to it. But he finishes that thought by saying, accept and then act. Surrender is not a complete absence of taking action. But surrender asks us to accept first. First, have acceptance. First, stop splashing in the pond. First, accept this moment as if I had chosen it. And then when I feel the softness, when I feel my nervous system has settled down, when my pond has settled so I can see, at least with some clarity, where to place my next step. Then take action, but action from a place of surrender. And very often that looks like small steps, little baby steps. Surrender is not ever the absence of action, but it is the absence of splashing. We have the last 5 breaths of gratitude to do together. With every exhale, I'll say my thank you, and I invite you to say yours. Let's take a deep breath in. Thank you for this beautiful embodiment of a calm pond. Take a deep breath in. Thank you for getting better at catching myself with the first few splashes. Getting better at not going all the way to the storm in my pond before I decide to get out. Take a deep breath in. Thank you for a journey of slowly, baby steps, finding ease in surrendering control, finding peace in completely accepting that of course I have no control. Take a deep breath in. Thank you for learning and understanding that just like a pond of water, my natural state is calm, and trusting that I will always return to my natural state when I stop splashing. One more big breath in. Thank you, beautiful people. Thank you for being on our journey today. Hey Maggie, so cool to see you live. Good morning Estelle, awesome seeing you too. Wishing you all a magical day. In a way, it's so normal for us, being human, to splash in our ponds. Can we all soften into the willingness to recognize the splashing soon and get better at stepping out before it's a full-blown storm? Thanks, Antoinette. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Sunmuddy. Thank you, Charlene. Thank you, Beatrix. Have a beautiful day, beautiful humans. See you again soon. Ciao, ciao.